Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. All right, folks, today's story takes us straight to the chaos of a nightclub where one poor worker just wanted to restock the toilet paper, but Karen had other plans. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Karen gets handcuffed at the club after trying to follow me into the bathroom. I used to work at a nightclub for years as a side gig. The club hosted a variety of events, but every Saturday night was the big one of the most popular parties in town. It brought in all sorts of people, the regular city dwellers, the bridge hoppers, and the general crowd just wanting to dance. The place would get so packed that people often couldn't even dance properly. They were more like sardines, just pressed up against each other, wiggling a little. Not my scene at all, especially since I can't stand strangers touching me. One of my responsibilities at the club was to take care of the bathrooms, which on busy Saturday nights felt like the worst job in the world. I can't even imagine what I did in a past life to deserve that task. There were multiple bathrooms in the club, but one of the busiest was a single stall on the top floor. On this particular night, I had to head up there to freshen things up. I fought my way through the crowd, which was a nightmare, carrying towels, cleaning supplies, and of course my arms were full of toilet paper. When I reached the bathroom, there was a long line of people waiting. I tried to communicate to them over the loud music and the shouting that I needed to go in next. Most people understood, but there was one woman who clearly did not. She was basic, like the kind of girl you'd see as an extra in a Gap commercial. Young, blonde, and generally forgettable. She wasn't even dressed for the party, more like she'd just walked out of a mall. But when she saw me trying to go in, she flipped. She started shouting that I couldn't cut in line. I don't remember all the insults she hurled at me, but this girl definitely had a mouth on her, like she'd been raised on a sailor's vocabulary. I tried to explain calmly that I'd only need a couple of seconds to clean up. Really, I just had to put down the toilet paper and wipe a surface unless someone had passed out in there, but she wasn't having it. And the worst part, she wasn't even next in line. Finally, the bathroom door opened. I quickly rushed in, but then to my utter disbelief, she tried to follow me into the single stall. I couldn't believe it. She started losing her mind, yelling and pushing. I was scared, so I quickly shut the door and locked it, careful not to trap her in with me. I radioed security for help, feeling completely overwhelmed. I was a little scared, so I waited until security confirmed it was safe to leave the bathroom. I didn't think much more of it, since clubs are chaotic and stuff like this happens all the time. But then on my break outside, I saw the girl in handcuffs. The police had her sitting on the curb, and I was asked to give a statement about what had led up to this. Her friends, a guy and another woman, were standing nearby shouting for the cops to release her, saying she didn't do anything. She was crying, protesting, "I didn't hit anyone." Sure, honey, sure. Once I gave my statement, security told me what had happened after I left the bathroom. When they arrived, she was freaking out by the bathroom door, causing a scene. The security guys, who were huge but incredibly calm, tried to talk her down, but instead of calming down, she completely lost it. She started hitting them, mostly going for their heads and even scratching one of them near his eye. From what I was told, she must have climbed up the security guard, who was over 6 feet tall, to scratch him that badly. These guys hardly ever get physically hurt at the club, so it was surprising to hear she'd managed to scratch him. When they hauled her off in handcuffs for assaulting 2 people, I had to fight not to laugh. It was so ridiculous, and I was just glad I'd gotten away from her in the bathroom. It was definitely a crazy night, and it was hard not to find the whole thing a bit hilarious, considering how entitled she acted over something so simple. This story's pure chaos. And honestly, I can't stop laughing at how this girl went from mildly annoying to full-blown disaster in record time. What was her plan? Push you out mid-cleaning and claim the throne? The entitlement's unreal. And then she doubles down by attacking security? It's almost impressive how quickly she went from being an inconvenience to a complete liability. Scratching a 6-foot security guard near the eye? She really thought she was starring in Karen, the action movie. And our second story. Project manager insists on measuring us by check-ins, so we flooded his inbox with thousands. I work as an integrated circuit design engineer. My team's mostly based in the Bay Area, but for some reason my current project is being headed up on the East Coast. We haven't met the project manager in person, working remote due to COVID, and it turns out he's a bit more controlling and overbearing than we're used to. Now, chip design isn't the same as software development, but it has some similarities. We use a version control system to check in changes to the design to make sure we can roll back if there are errors or whatever. Works great. In order to keep the database manageable, we typically don't check in too often, only when we make a significant change we want others to be able to see. So we do a few check-ins on average normally. Anyway, this new project manager came down with an edict last month that one of our KPIs, key performance indicators, one of the ways they evaluate our performance, will be how many check-ins we do. Predictably, people have started checking in new versions of their designs for every little thing they do, and it's become harder and harder to comprehend how the project is going, as the history's all muddled now. The project manager has configured the version control system so he gets an email for every check-in so he can keep tabs on us. During my last one-on-one a few days ago with the project manager, I told him the team didn't want to be evaluated on check-ins anymore because doing too many check-ins is counterproductive. But the guy wouldn't budge. We're getting to the point in the project where we have to start hammering the design with tests to try to find faults. We do this by generating many thousands of files that have test sequences in them. These are called test vectors. Then we run a program that sends our design random samplings of the test vectors. Anyway, for traceability, we check in these test vector files in the version control system. So this morning I was on Slack with a few team members and we came up with an idea. We usually make a zip file of the test vectors to check in once, but there's a performance argument we can make to just check them in individually as raw text. Project manager wants an email from every check-in? Fine. Project manager wants to evaluate us on number of check-ins? Fine. We wrote a script that makes each team member check in a certain amount of the test vectors, tens of thousands for each of us. This will nuke both his KPI results and kill his inbox. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke. We just launched the script 30 minutes ago. Haven't gotten an email from him yet, presumably because his email inbox is melted down. Edit. He just called my cell. He was surprisingly good-natured about it. He just basically said he got the point, and that was pretty clever. Then he asked some more project-related stuff. The part I love most is how you and your team didn't just push back with words, but with cold, calculated action. Instead of a boring debate, you engineered a response that was technically correct and devastatingly effective. Hopefully, this guy now realizes that treating highly skilled engineers like assembly line workers is a losing game. If not, well, let's just say you've already proven that your team knows how to play it better. Absolutely brilliant. And our last story. Celebrity Karen. I'm a builder primarily working on luxury bespoke homes that range from $1 million to $4 million. Although I'm a 34-year-old woman, which is uncommon in my field, I genuinely enjoy the work and have become quite skilled at it. My previous projects were mostly on large ranches in the country, but this time I'm working in the middle of a big city, so I've had to deal with the neighbors, something I've never had to do before. The neighbors in this area have been some of the most entitled, nasty people I've ever encountered, and one of them happens to be a celebrity and his wife, who's also well known. I haven't had much interaction with them, but I've made an effort to be friendly. Every morning when the wife, let's call her B, goes for her walk, I wave and smile because that's just how I am, especially here in Texas, but she always ignores me. Eventually, I just stopped acknowledging her. For the past year, my job site has been busy, and most of my subcontractors park along the street in front of the house. We all park on one side of the street, facing the proper direction of traffic. If anyone parks on the other side, the neighbors call the cops or the city building official, which I find incredibly childish, but I don't make a big fuss. I have my crew move the cars, and it's no big deal. Every morning, I stop by the project to check on my guys, give them instructions, and make sure everything's running smoothly. I usually park on the far right side of B's property, just to the left of the construction drive, so that my guys have enough parking in front of the project house. I'm not there for long, usually only 2 or 3 hours. One day, as I was outside the house, a woman approached me. At first, I didn't recognize her, but it turns out she was B's maid. She told me that I needed to move my car, which was parked on the correct side of the public street. Apparently, B was going to call the cops if I didn't move it. I calmly told the maid that I was parked legally. She then informed me that B was going to charge me $500 a day for parking in front of her house. I laughed and told her that I didn't realize B was struggling financially enough to start charging for public street parking. Just to get ahead of the situation, I called the police. The officer confirmed that there was nothing B could do about me parking in front of her property. However, he mentioned that I could get a ticket for parking within 15 feet of a fire hydrant, which happened to be located on the property line between my project and B's house. The officer informed me that I needed to be 15 feet away from the hydrant. I thanked him and he left, so I moved my car. I used my measuring tape to check the 15-foot distance, which ended up putting my car nearly directly in front of B's house. I decided to park there for the next 2 weeks. Every time B was rude to me on the street, which happened more than I would have liked, I made a point to park right in front of her house. Honestly, if she'd come to me politely and asked me not to park there, I would have respected her request and avoided parking there in the future. But the fact that she sent her maid to threaten me really rubbed me the wrong way. I don't like when people act like they're above others just because they have money. I know billionaires who have better manners than her, so I wasn't about to let her attitude slide. Sending her maid to threaten fines for parking legally on a public street? That's not just over the top, it's absurd. It screams power play, and the maid probably hated being dragged into this nonsense. Good on you for calling the cops to confirm you were in the right, and then meticulously parking within legal limits was perfect. You didn't argue or escalate, you simply let the law handle it and turned the tables. The real takeaway here is how B's arrogance sabotaged her. A polite conversation could have resolved this easily, but her condescension earned her exactly what she deserves. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.